So my daughter had her first CYO game of the season yesterday. It was opening day for her team as well. They put her in goal. She let in two goals during her time there, but they ended up drawing. So essentially, my daughter was Brad Stuver last night.
Emergency podcast. Verde did a thing, so we gotta talk about it. Emergency podcast. It's an emergency. Emergency podcast. Shut up, hey, shut up, hey, shut up. Emergency podcast. It's an emergency.
Hey, a hearty hello to you all, and welcome to Emergency Podcast, the Austin FC podcast, where we talk about all the Austin FC emergencies. Opening day happened last night. It was a 2-2 draw, as you know. Typically, we record before games, but long week, lots of previews, lots going on. Moisés, you were out and about with Verde Week and all the Verde Week celebrations. So we're going to recap everything, and we're doing a special Sunday afternoon recording here. Moisés, how are you doing? We got to hang out after the game. We got to watch one of the most hilarious assists that we will see in this MLS season in the conclusion of that Portland-Columbus game. How are you recovering this fair Sunday?
I'm good. I mean, honestly, watching Columbus get bad news that late in their game that looked like it was going to end a draw was something that let me be clear, as an impartial journalist with no skin in any game, the joy for me came from you willing that into happening. And as our colleague Jimmy Moss from KUT said in the press box a couple times during last night's game, it's only the blank minute. Don't get ahead of yourself. Calm down.
Including the 89th minute.
Yeah.
Foretelling badness.
Yeah.
in our game.
Yeah. It was, I don't know. Here's my opening statement, Phil. The result of the match last night, and I said this to you last night, soon as the match was over, there have been draws that have felt like losses that the Austin fan base have seen over the last couple of years that have felt really crushing, really dispiriting. And admittedly, I think in the moment, this definitely had that kind of letdown feeling. But the conversations that I saw both in person and in fan chats online afterward was not like those draws that felt like losses of the past. What they saw and what resulted in those chats during the match being much less active, I think, than we're used to seeing, is they were seeing something very different. They were seeing a different personality of this club, having an attacking threat, controlling the attacking third in ways that this fan base, who has been really avidly following this club for just over 5 years now, are not used to seeing. And to me, I think the quality and style of play on display last night is something that did exactly what I know Roto Borrell and Nico Estevez have said they want, which is they want the fans to trust in the players that they've got, that they are capable of delivering results. And this feels a lineup, albeit with some pieces that, and we'll get into this, to certain folks are worryingly illogical in terms of where they're playing or how they're playing. The way they actually played last night silenced a fair amount of, wait a minute, how is this going to work? How is this quote unquote weird lineup and weird roster going to work in MLS? And I think stacking it with this many MLS vets is maybe a template for other sporting directors to borrow from in looking at what really helps the group of guys that in relative terms are just starting to play pickup with each other look like they've been playing with each other since last season.
Yeah. I mean, I still have concerns. I mean, it's a late defensive lapse, and we'll get into why that happened, not entirely within the team's control, I don't think. I mean, you have this Robert Taylor injury that happens, and that kind of sets things into motion. But this is still kind of a case of we've seen this before. We saw this a lot last year. We saw 3 points turn into 1 point or 1 point turn into 0 points based on just one late defensive lapse. And I broke it down in my story this morning on Verde All Day. So we'll talk about that a little bit here down the line. But yeah, let's get into, I guess, since we're kind of already there, let's get into some of the positives first from the match. And let's do this before we get into the match. Let's do kind of quick Verde Week highlights from
Sounds good.
You're Out and About. Obviously, Tifo was unveiled last night, season opening Tifo, the Black Cowboys. Looked really good. Integrated some stuff with the big Jumbotron board
Yeah.
up top, which was cool to see, see that front office and supporter kind of synergy, but obviously supporters doing all the work, front office just put the signage up on their board. But despite the Apple TV folks calling it the anthem all night,
South End,
that it's a group effort, right?
The South End
it's
was
a lot
alive.
of people coming together.
Yeah,
yes.
To address that, an incredibly talented journalist who's also done work as a publicist might have provided broadcast notes, one sentence of which the Apple TV English broadcasters read. One sentence, which is better than nothing, but mislabeling the entire supporter section the Austin anthem. I can assure you that was not in those press notes. And it's nothing against my friends in Austin Anthem, but the accuracy there is something that's why you provide the broadcasters the press notes, because they don't do the homework on supporters groups and what's called what. And just because it's called this or that in Kansas City doesn't mean that template applies to every MLS fan base.
As Guilherme Beer can attest.
Guilherme Beer, yes. Good old beer. But yeah, so I guess to start off with the Tifo, it was titled We Will Ride With You Forever. As we speak, there is merch live on the Los Verdes store that the proceeds are going to be split between the ongoing Tifo Sustainability Fund and specifically directly benefiting the Black Cowboy History Museum, which is in Rosenberg, just outside of Houston. It's run by Larry Callies. His story is a fascinating one. He was a cowboy singer with the same manager as well-known Western artists. And when he lost his voice, he found his calling in terms of spreading the story and pushing the true stories of how foundationally important Black cowboys and cowgirls were to the history of the West across the United States, in Texas and beyond. A couple of pals, Rico Hernandez from La Morgue de Austin, one of their capos, and Marcos Morales, who did the art for the Hispanic Heritage Month Tifo a few years ago, had this basic kind of a concept, and they wanted to find just the right artist for it. And they did in Tobar, the man who runs tobartakeover.com, local artist who has been friends of mine's professor at Full Sail, a guy who knows what he does and is also capable of training next generations of artists coming up, which is not nothing. He has an ongoing series called The Neon Cowboy that is really wonderful and thematically ties to what he did with We Will Ride With You Forever. But Los Verdes has put a bunch of stuff up on socials and out there detailing the process. It's something that, having been around and witnessed the process for a lot of these in the past, this one was uniquely, the concept gets pitched, everybody in the room goes, who's got something better than that? Like, we have to do that. And the timing is such that, especially with the schedule change, one of the last times that the season opener will definitely fall within Black History Month. And it's something that hasn't been commemorated in Tifo before. And this is very much the sort of thing that the Austin supporters from the beginning have been, yes, we're a young fan base, but what we're building is a foundation for a lot of big things in the future in terms of community, in terms of the city of Austin, outside of just soccer fans, right? Instead of just looking at it as this is just soccer stuff. One of the things that makes Austin FC Tifos distinctly different is that it so deeply embraces these local artists, muralists, people who work in, aside from a Tifo, the largest scale canvas that you can, the side of a building, right? And last night's had a couple of new unique elements that I'd teased previously, where you actually had Fringe on the shirt that moved, and there was a flag that actually rippled in the wind.
Tobar from Oklahoma, Tifo with the Fringe on top.
Tifo with the Fringe on top. There you go. But like I said, there's merch available for sale, and the proceeds will be split evenly between continuing to make Tifo sustainable on into the future, as well as the Black Cowboy Museum. And even if you're listening to this years later, and maybe that campaign is over, the Black Cowboy Museum is a registered 501c3. You can directly donate to them and support them. The funny/unfortunate thing is Larry Callies, the founder of the museum, wasn't able to be there last night. You want to know why, Phil?
I know why, but tell us all.
Well, he had to go to the rodeo. He had roping to do.
Yeah, of course he did.
You know, that's what good cowboys got to do. Over 130 people put in over 1,000 hours of volunteer time to making this thing happen through cold weather, through rain, through making last-minute adjustments, through pivoting to local independent breweries who have been helpful for us in providing painting space when a stadium isn't available. But a lot of this was painted, constructed, compiled, put together on the concourse at Q2 where people walked last night. And there's just something spiritually right about that kind of thing happening.
Also where Guilherme Biro walked last night. We'll get into that later.
Oh boy.
rather than being with his teammates, getting warmed up for a match. We'll talk about that in a bit. You also went to the Yeti flagship party. You went to Verde Fest.
Yeah.
Any highlights from there that you want to share?
Since we last recorded, there were the fan experiences. There were the official press conference events, including RotoFest 2026A. Presumably we'll talk to him again after the summer window too. And it's been interesting to me the way that things are bleeding over in ways that are productive. The front office was buying drinks at Verde Fest, but the event was all about the supporters. And the supporters groups were set up selling merch, independent merch outfits like the Dispensary were set up selling Stuver blind pack pins. And people were vibing, people were warming up. It was the fans' warm up for the new season the night before at Radio East for the first time. Great venue, voted one of the top music venues in Austin very shortly after its establishment, run by a great guy named Rick.
Yeah, you remember I saw Shaky Graves there during the San Jose game that I missed, and you got to cover that wonderful win for us on that one. So so you got to experience that. That's good. Glad
what a great music venue. It's not just another great radio, which is one of my favorite places right off of the edge of downtown to hang out. Yep. It was great vibes. It was great people. I think after a couple of seasons that have been up and down, even though I still very strongly mark last season as a very good course correction in terms of the character of the club, the character of what they're capable of, getting to that U.S. Open Cup final and improving in so many ways that every signing is a roll of the dice, and some of them work out and some of them don't work out. I feel like this kickoff was different than the others, where it was people who've been around for a half decade who were stringing the poles on the flags the very first time, working on the very first Tifos, founding members of the band, folks that are still around to the theme of last year's season opener Tifo, here year after year, saying, as this year's Tifo did, we will ride with you forever. It's not that there isn't a sense of accountability from the fans, but you're not gonna stop these fans. The Yeti kickoff party was fun. It was laid back. It was, another open bar. A lot of open bars these days. John Gallagher.
In the meantime, I wrote 30 league previews.
Yeah.
I hope you enjoyed them. No fun for me this week.
They were wonderful. I'm almost through them all because I was so busy on my social calendar.
So Gally was out there?
Yeah, Gally was out there signing autographs, taking pictures with folks. Okay. He was the one player who was out. Most, if not all, the other players were at the Spurs game. John worked, so everybody else had the night off. Roto was walking around, holding court, talking to fans. I talked to him a little bit. He, kind of going in reverse order, greeted me by joking about how I'm Jorge Lastaway fan number 1. And then I pointed to her now from We're Austin TV, and I said, well, fan number 2 is right here next to me, so watch it. But yeah, it was nice seeing what I've seen many times, which is him chatting to people in informal situations where he's happy to hold court and dispel myths and give people a look behind the curtain in ways that is a better way to understand what the work really is behind the scenes, what the sense of accomplishment is overall in terms of the sporting direction of the club. And I think we get everything so very unfiltered in those press conferences with him that it's difficult to say that he's really withholding much.
But yet you did get some
mystery.
A little bit of mystery, a little bit of interesting background on just not just with the salary cap and the rules and that sort of thing. I got some interesting perspective, which I agree not to share word for word, but just the environment that there was when he first came in, and it added a bit of additional color to just how steep of a climb various of those things were. Rebuilding something in a lot of ways with the proper form and finish that they should have is not something that happens overnight. And he said in the press conference, that there were things that he wanted to and expected to happen faster than they did, faster than they could. And that's just kind of like these players who come in MLS going, it's MLS, this isn't the Champions League. oh, well, my domestic league, I'm now traveling the distances that I would in the Champions League.
Right.
Maybe.
And then some.
And then some. Maybe this is a different kind of an animal. But yeah, the press conference with Roto, the press conference with Nico over Zoom, where we talked to Jayden Nelson for a little bit. We got some good foundational stuff for the beginning of the season. Jayden definitely gave the impression, as he did in post-game interviews last night after the match, that these are guys that are vibing together, vibing really well. Yep. One of the things that we did see was that you would have guys like a Julio Cascante that, because everybody's salary numbers are public, everybody knew how much Julio was making. And Julio wasn't even in the team repeatedly. And it's gotta create something in the locker room that is, this guy's on this much money and he's not even performing, and I'm on a quarter of that. And contributing goal contributions and doing this and doing that. And I think some of the roster turnover, people being fan favorites being what it is, I think we've seen some of that chemistry work itself out a bit, in that the last of the Claudio Reyna contracts are gone. And this is a roster that you don't have guys distracted in the back of their heads thinking about, that guy's budget charge is 4 times what mine is. Why am I killing myself and playing 6 different positions? What's going on?
Right.
They don't have that as a distraction. They are able to completely focus on the game. And eliminating those kinds of distractions, I think, is essential. But my favorite thing, Phil, is Roto's flat. There were never any conversations about James Rodriguez. None.
Okay.
The rumors were completely false. There was no conversation. It only invented in the mind of an agent was their conversation about James to Austin.
They were all happening with Minnesota, apparently.
Yeah.
So we did not get to see him, but we did see a DP in Facundo Torres, who led the team with 74 touches, led the team with 3 chances created, had a couple shots in there, got the first assist of the season to Brendan Hines-Ike, everybody's prediction for first goal scorer of the year, less than 7 minutes into the match. So obviously, so we're going to get into some positives from the match here, because we are segueing hard right into that. Yeah, Torres, I thought looked great. I thought he looked like he belonged. And yeah, I'm very excited to see more of him. And I was talking to Brad while you were talking to him in the post-match. Anything worth sharing that he talked about? We did get some quotes in the article that I wrote this morning, but did not get any of the Spanish quotes into that particular one. So,
I mean, none of it was particularly newsy, but it was good and encouraging. This guy just got here and he was only with the team for part of the preseason. And the way that he talks and the way that it seems he has cohered with the group, it's like he's been here the whole time. It's like he got signed in December or something. To me, I think an heir apparent to the armband when Ilie moves off the squad. This is a guy who landed and has the energy of the guy who can work with and talk to all the players on the team who, like Driussi, his English is definitely better than he lets on, at least in terms of his understanding and being able to communicate with his teammates.
Unlike Driussi, seemed to enjoy being in front of the media.
Yeah. Much more personable, much more embracing of interactions with the fans, too. I mean, I don't think Driussi ever did a solo signing the whole time he was here, but Facundo was like, at the end of that signing, I don't think I'm telling tales out of school, but he had them grab like 5 of his jerseys and was like, give these to fans because I want people wearing my jersey on Saturday. This is a guy who landed and he is here. He is seated and he is ready to be part of this community, not just because this is where his contract is. I think that based on what he said in his intro press conference, he is glad to have his family back in MLS. It's a much more sustainable family life experience than being in Sao Paulo. And he's played against these fans and in this stadium, and he knows what these facilities are like, and he knows what the staff is like. And he is happy not just for the salary, but what it represented. I think that we can probably get more detail on this from him as we build more of a rapport with him. But I got to have the feeling that looking at Austin as the offer was a very easy, pursue this as quickly as possible. Don't let that get gone. No. That sounds absolutely perfect. Not a dissimilar temperature climate to Orlando, just different in terms of the amount of rain in a lot of ways. Yeah, a little dusty, a little drier. But he really has. Yeah, he is acclimated. He's in there. This fits him like a glove. And the way that he was taking corners, man, like that kind of consistency, that corner that led to that goal, that's one of those things this team has been missing. And he was on it from early in the first 15 minutes.
Yeah. So it'll be nice to actually see Owen in the mix when he returns rather than being the one having to take the corner. So, yeah. And then Jayden Nelson, we got to talk to him after, and he was great. He's dialed in. Very disappointed that he couldn't give the fans the win rather than the draw. Said it sucked. That was literally the words out of his mouth. So, yeah, just very, very much straight shooter, fitting in instantly. All the buzz I've seen around from fans, they love him. They're on board. I thought he played great. Disappointed to see him come out a little bit early, but he was cramping, so that is going to happen. And again, I mean, he's been, he did some pretty big minutes with the national team, trying to get onto that for Canada, and then obviously is working himself into acclimating to Austin. Said the locker room was hot, as he was leaving,
and it was,
and yet it's not July, August levels of hot. Yeah. So,
for talking about another guy, Joseph Rosales. Hernan asked him something about the fans and kind of what it's been like being with the club, coming from Minnesota, and that kind of thing. MLS to MLS guys are often very reluctant to compare one fan base to another. Ilya was notable for that. He wasn't going to say the Austin fans were better than LAFC fans or anything like that, which various people try to bait him into, but he was never going to say. But Rosales, again, like not newsy, but the thing that he mentioned and that he has mentioned previously is that being Honduran and there being such a strong community here in Austin, that's something, it's not nothing. It's something that makes him feel comfortable, makes him feel embraced and at home, and just seems very cool, calm, level-headed, despite what some of his cards for Minnesota might have made you think. Also, just in terms of seeing the guys interacting with each other, they've all got to be collegial in a locker room, right? But again, it's like he played for Austin for however many years, not Minnesota. Yeah, I like the way that it seems, and none of these guys are good enough of actors to be pulling off faking group cohesion the way that they look now.
Yeah. And I didn't love Rosales at right wing 100%, but it wasn't also as bad as I had feared that it was going to be. Like, he actually looked like he belonged in this kind of middle line of three. Again, I mean, they were kind of more defending in a 4-4-2, but didn't look out of place playing where he was playing, even though it's not necessarily what we had expected when he got signed.
Well, and it's a jarring difference between how he plays right wing and how Buka played it all season last season, right? Yeah. And even how Obrian played it. But to your point, that he was maintaining ball possession was the big thing. Even when he got kind of trapped and was 1v2 or 1v3 at different points, he was hanging onto the ball and getting it into somebody else's feet that could do something with it and keep progressing it. And it was, to me, it was
rather than trying to play through them. To
me,
Buka was wont to do.
Right. Like, to me, that kind of play spoke to what we saw that made the attacking shape a recognizable attacking shape. Like, they were maintaining ball possession. They were progressing it up. There was not just the occasional lob forward or cross to nowhere. There were some lobs forward and some crosses to nowhere, but they weren't the majority of the lobs forward and the crosses across. Like, those were now statistically the minority of what we were seeing, and we were seeing much more calm, cool, collected. All right, we're going to get the ball up there and we're going to make something happen with it. And I've got to highlight the contributor without whom that second goal wouldn't have happened, Robert Taylor. As the WWE theme music for Joe Hendry goes, say his name and he appears, I believe in Rob Taylor. I believe in Rob Taylor. Clap, clap. I loved what I saw from him last night, and it's deeply unfortunate to see him what looked like do his knee in a non-contact. It looked really, really painful. The joy on his face in the celebration of that goal.
2 goal celebrations.
I mean...
Gallagher wheeled off and celebrated what he thought was his goal, and Uzuni wheeled off and celebrated what actually ended up being his goal.
Yeah, look, here's what matters, Phil. It was a goal. It was a goal.
Yes, it was.
And you know what? 3 guys were materially essential to it happening. If Myrto had not been standing where he was, right place at the right time, the goalie could have dove to exactly that place in theory. but
Yeah.
you
Or
can't
Boxall
exactly.
might have gotten far post, depending on how far
Right.
it was.
Right.
Yeah.
That's
So,
the thing is
so
it
thank
is
goodness for whatever body part it bounced off of.
look, Phil, sometimes you just got to go hard. Know what I mean?
Yeah.
You know.
Think they said thigh on the Apple TV
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
broadcast.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if that
Yeah,
was,
okay.
euphemistic, or I don't know if euphemistic's the right word here, but maybe thighs doing a lot of work here. I don't know. I mean, I have my theories, but we didn't
Uh
get the right camera angle on this. But anybody who
no.
was in the North End and saw it conclusively would love to know.
Yeah, it'd be fascinating to know. I mean, that to me speaks mostly to, yes, a disappointing draw that felt like a loss in various respects, but those fan chats were quiet in the way that they were, such that to me, some of the strongest critics within the fan base, the most critical take they could muster was, it wasn't as bad as I thought, which when those are the same people who would look at 1-0 wins last season and go, that's not good enough. That's not acceptable. To me, that's progress.
Yeah.
To me, that's progress when the biggest distractors within the locals are going, okay, all right, begrudgingly, Austin has an attacking shape now. Austin has a roster now that seems to all be on the same page. There's the progress of last season, and
Without
there's
a few of the
this
best
kind of
players
process.
still on this team. Yeah.
Yeah.
You're still missing Owen. You're still missing BV. You're
BV,
still
yeah.
missing Dessler. So that again is concerning, that they're not here for the start of the season. And we learned, sounds like it's still maybe 2-3 weeks out until we're going to see significant minutes from Owen. Maybe Dessler comes along a little bit quicker. He's supposed to be training this week, maybe not doing all the training necessarily, but looks like he'll be able to cycle in and do most of it. But obviously still some concerns. And then we had Nelson, Stuver, Gallagher all saying, and I think even Bell said when you talked to him, that they all recognize that it's 2 points lost, that they need to close out games. They have the awareness of that. Again, part of that, we got into that a little bit with Nico in the post-match. They were planning a different sub to go 5 in the back to try to defense it out at the end of the game. Taylor ends up with a non-contact knee injury. He's far away from the play as it's materializing, as I wrote about in the Verde all day post-match morning after write-up. But still, you had this play coming down with Paddleford down what is the defense's right flank. And then you have this ball into Yeboah for the equalizer. And I did frame by frame thing on that. And you can see in the article in that Pereira is the closest player to Yeboah and just doesn't track him. Kolmanic is on the other side. He doesn't step up and track either. So essentially you've got their very dangerous number 9 freely floating in space in the 90th minute and is able to get on to this perfect cross, and he's 4 yards away from goal when he heads it, and Stuver has no chance on it. No goalkeeper has a chance on it. It's just, again, it's a defensive lapse, and Nico hadn't really watched and broke it down, but just looking frame by frame, I think if Danny had at least gotten over there and challenged it, maybe that goal doesn't happen.
Yeah, I mean, it's a shame. And the characterization of the way that you say that the players said that they processed it very much as a loss, as they were the better team the entire time. It was unacceptable that they lost 2 points on it. It contributes to something that a couple of them have said, which is that they are treating every game this season as a final, with the seriousness of it being a final and not a whatever that was a lousy draw that felt like a loss. We'll rub it off and come back next time. I was honestly surprised at the way that John Gallagher was of the same demeanor as if they had lost 3-0 and just, no, this is not acceptable. And you want that kind of accountability from the players. You want that kind of group cohesion, like I said, where everybody is in agreement and shakes it off in different ways, that this isn't about finger pointing. This is about whatever we have to do to get better. We got to be better.
Yeah. And speaking of accountability, y'all probably noticed this if you were following along on Blue Sky. Some other people noticed this too. I asked Nico about this right away in the press conference. Biro and Šabović, of course, they had the red cards in the last postseason match against SKC. They were held out of this game. They were not in the 20. Nico said it's very much about creating culture. It's about discipline. It's about basically, respecting the squad. And we heard that from Brad too, like at the end of the match. So again, I don't know how much kind of like player leadership went into this, or if this was just all Nico Nico's decision. Nico seemed to own it, but indications are they'll be back next week. There's no injuries or anything like that. It's just it's a case of they screwed up, they got reckless red cards, and they got held out of this game as if they were serving a red card suspension, even though they didn't have to because it was a preseason game, and that doesn't obviously carry over.
I mean, there was speculation, again, in various chats and various places before the match that, oh, if Nico held these guys out, that's it. Fire him now. If this was his decision, get his head on a pike. We haven't played the first game of the season, but fire the coach. Fire him now. I completely disagree. I've coached boys sports, admittedly at a much younger level.
And when they get red cards, damn it.
Here's the thing. When it comes down to it, if you were going to do the corrective on mentality, I would rather a coach do it now for something that doesn't matter, a preseason friendly, than have to deal with players feeling like there is an acceptable place for them to just be like third division dumbasses, which that's what those red cards were. That was dumbassery, pure and simple. And both of those guys know that. Like, they know that. Like, if they think that it is fine for them to be like that, I gather they both got the message. Not getting to play in the home opener, that's a serious thing. And if their character is such that they respond poorly to being held out of the game, then that's a bigger problem and a bigger issue.
It sounded like that was going to be the case, though. It sounded like they were going to be ready for next week. It sounds like they heard the message, they understood. I mean, we'll see how it transpires, but the early indications right now. And then, because you actually had a run-in with Biro.
I saw him in the concourse
before the game.
I saw him. Yeah, I saw him.
And
he didn't look thrilled to not be dressed. That was my impression.
Well, he was dressed, but not.
He was dressed to the nines, but he wasn't dressed in club gear. He didn't look like he was happy to not be playing it.
Right. So it seems like next week when he does get the chance to play, he will, I imagine, relish that and treat it with the reverence that it deserves. So
yeah, I think so.
Yeah. So, again, we'll see our all-star in the field sooner rather than later, I have a feeling. So, although I thought Kolmanic played well.
I did too.
I mean, I
do too.
I didn't, again, I have questions about elements of his game, but I thought he counted for himself quite well. So yeah, there wasn't, Uzuni, I was really kind of concerned about his number of touches, seemed kind of light, seemed like he still wasn't getting as involved as he needed to. But in the second half, that picked up a little bit. This was kind of more of around a 55th, 60th minute concern that I had. And obviously, he does score weirdly, but he does score. He had a chance in the second half following up from a Torres chance. So he did get himself in there. He did get himself involved. I still have questions about kind of how that all goes. And I think once Owen gets into the mix, then we'll see a little bit more offensive cohesion and getting him maybe more in the mix. But I think getting a goal, no matter how he did it in the first match, it's good. It's better than him obviously not scoring and being subbed off and being sulky and all that. I mean, he did get the goal. He got to celebrate, as mentioned before, Gallagher's doing a celebration at the opposite end of the goal, but it's good. It's good to see celebrations. It's just too bad that lead didn't hold ultimately.
Yeah. I just, what I can't get over is how I don't know that before the match started that I would have believed a draw that felt like a loss, that I would feel this up on things as I do, where there are a lot of other clubs that have a lot of deeper holes to dig themselves out of. Kansas City is one of them. The way that LAFC versus Miami went, leading to a Leo Messi following the refs and having to get pulled away by Suarez of all people.
Yeah, but not entering, not doing a Matt Miazga, so not gonna face discipline probably.
Doing shy of a Miazga, pulling just shy of a Miazga, which is now officially a tactical move. A Miazga. That's the name for it.
We've coined it. You're welcome.
Yeah. Speaking of Miami, here's the thing that I'm going to lay out 5 games in advance of when Austin goes to Miami to open Freedom Park.
Okay.
I'm fascinated to see what that journey is going to be like. Not just what that game's going to be like, but I think Miami showed defensive lapses last night that make that match against Austin a lot more interesting than I think people are expecting it to be. I think a lot
Mhm.
of people on the Miami partisan side of things are fully expecting it to go exactly one way.
Yeah.
And going into a match against Nico Esteves overconfidently, the way that Mikey Varas did in that first match against San Diego last season,
Mm-hmm.
doesn't go the way you think. Doesn't go the way you think.
Although after that LAFC match and after, seeing those highlights and seeing bits and pieces of that game, I told you, and I'm gonna say it here. MLS Cup, I think it's LAFC Nashville.
Yeah. The way that things are right now, Phil,
Mm-hmm.
I don't disagree with you. But the thing I'm going to keep beating the drum of, this season is 2 seasons long with a 2-month break in between.
Right.
And whole rosters could change and guys can blow themselves out like crazy playing in the World Cup. That completely changes the complexion of, to me, the tougher of the two halves of the MLS season.
Mm-hmm. Right. Yeah. Mina Vander apparently did his hamstring 11 minutes into that opener. So they squeaked by with a win over Atlanta. So yeah, there's some really interesting storylines happening. Montreal doesn't look great. SKC doesn't look great. So there is that. So there are those storylines as well. But Guilherme brace for Houston. Dallas looked like Peter Musa is kind of continuing on where he left off last season. So it's competitive. There's a lot going on. It's not going to be easy to get into the playoffs this year. So, I mean, I think Austin can still do it, kind of based on what I saw yesterday, but it's going to be real tricky.
Yeah, I feel like there's a certain amount of unknowns that really make it difficult to predict a lot this year, despite how incredibly confident various league-wide pundits were in how Austin's in the 20 to 30 range among the 30 teams and all this other stuff that to me felt less scientific than I've got to rank everything somehow.
And then Galaxy, I'm curious to see tonight because everybody seems to be locking them into like 5th in the West. And I don't know that I necessarily see it yet. I mean, I think you take Ricky Pooch off that team again, and it's I mean, they've got a better shot than they did last year. I mean, certainly not winning in your first 16 is going to kind of derail your season, obviously, since there's only 34 games. But I don't know that I necessarily see them getting 5th in the West like others do.
Yeah. Tonight's games, everything else was going on while our game was going on. But seeing Galaxy against New York City, Seattle versus Colorado, I think those are both going to be really interesting matchups. And I want to look back at some of the highlights from other matches this weekend, just to see how people are putting their first foot forward, as much as I really stand by the fact that, oh man, things can change a lot. Things can change a lot in the next 3 months leading into the break, let alone how things start back up in late July. 6 months from now can be a whole different world. What happens if Sonny picks up a nasty injury and is out for a protracted amount of time? That really does fundamentally change a lot for LAFC, which isn't to denigrate Bwanga, but so much of what is going so great there, you could put various next pro players next to Son Heung-min, and they look like absolute geniuses.
Yeah. Anything else we want to hit before we wrap it up for the week? Obviously, we'll have a DC match, a matinee. I love a matinee. So we'll do some preview stuff there ahead of that, and obviously curious to kind of see how the week goes. I anticipate we'll get some Taylor news. I anticipate we'll get some Dessler and Wolf updates. Certainly on the injury front, curious to see how the team's going to align. Curious to see how Biro and Šabović continue to respond from their sojourn in the doghouse this week. Anything else you're looking for?
The other thing to mention next Sunday is early game against DC United in the afternoon, season opener for Austin FC2 at Palmer Field against Minnesota United 2 at 7:30 that night. So for sickos who do double duty, it's a double header day. First team and second team playing in the same day, and plenty of time to take a little dinner break, get something to smuggle into Palmer, or eat it before you get there, your choice, and get over there to see how the new second team squad under their new coach roll things out their first time.
Sunday, March 1st is the doubleheader. It's the 1:30 and then the 7:30. So so if you want to see all the soccer, then you have that option for sure. And and obviously being into March, South by Southwest season and all the goodness, getting into spring, getting into the pollinating, getting into the live oaks, shedding their leaves, all of that fun stuff.
The only other thing I wanted to mention is that with some of the changes to the Apple broadcast deal, something we haven't seen yet is what form MLS wrap-up takes this year. Rumors have it having changed a bit. There's a different flow and a different character to things. I'm still firmly on the side of this broadcast deal has been transformative for MLS in upping the game, upping the watchability of games. In the previous way, if I was out of town for work, I didn't have a way to just turn on KBVO and watch the game. And in a lot of ways, there are parts of this deal that are that to me are the most essential parts that are still part of it, that are what make people being able to follow their team consistently incredibly important. And my hope is that as it continues evolving, even though cost cutting is always going to be a thing in broadcast sports, there are things that other sports are seeing from this model that they desperately want to copy, but it's going to take a few more rounds of the money being right, as it were, for other leagues to make things work as smoothly and as single subscription wise as MLS is. And now that it's not a separate subscription and you're also getting all of F1, I've got loads of F1 friends that I'm like, just watch soccer one time. It's way less hours and you don't have to do it at 3 a.m.
Yeah.
It's something in between.
Unless races. You want to. Yeah. All right. Well, good. We'll leave it there. Have a good week, everybody. And we'll try to resume on a normal schedule and get something ahead of the DC match, who were also winners yesterday. So there is that.
That's what happens when you trade Ty Baribo.
This is the best thing I've heard in the history of the 8 years I've been on this planet.